I hope you all had the opportunity, in some way, shape, or form, to put last week's message into practice, changing the way you speak to the people who are closest to you, switching from intense language to affirming language. I hope that was fun. I hope maybe some of you received strange text messages from spouses and had a little bit of a joke. If any of it felt awkward or stressed, that's okay. We're learning together. We're rekindling some of the weird, awkward tensions of dating. You don't get through dating without there being weird and awkward moments. Why shouldn't there continue to be fun, weird, awkward moments as you continue to date your spouse? And of course, it wasn't just about dating. It was about intimacy at large, being close to people, being truly known. It's God's desire for your life, for you to truly know Him, and to be truly known by other people. That's accomplished through the work of Jesus Christ. Last week, as we started our series on the Song of Songs, we went through the dating and courtship section, hence kind of that application. Today, we move out of this couple who's hopelessly infatuated with each other and can't see past the foxes that are potentially rooting their relationship. Remember, foxes running through the field, cutting off blossoms, things that could be roadblocks to intimacy. And today we move into a section of the relationship where the intimacy that Adam and Eve shared in the garden gets to be shared between them as well. So, brace yourself. This is by far the most graphic of all of the messages in the series. And if you've got students or kiddos who are here watching or going to be watching, it's worth having a conversation with them afterwards to debrief and talk about. If that's scary to you, too bad. Your parents, it's your job. I actually mean that. Because if you don't talk to your kids about God's design for sex, our culture will tell them, and you won't like the outcome. It's really just that simple. So we just kind of have to get over the awkwardness and the weirdness, because your kids have questions, and they have graphic pornography in their pocket on their cell phone. They're going to find the answers they're looking for if you're unwilling to engage in the conversation. Disciple your kids, especially in this area, or our world will. So, on that awkward nudge, we're going to move into what has the potential to be an awkward message. But I hope what you actually experience is not the awkwardness of it being communicated, but instead the captivating vision of intimacy that God has created you to fulfill and enjoy with Him and with other people. So today, we're going to see a four-fold progression into marital intimacy. And yes, in that specific sexual component. We're going to see it broken down in our passage, a moment of anticipation, where that's talked about, invitation, consummation, and then the affirmation of the moment. We're not going to hold anything back. Luckily, it's poetry. So it holds some stuff back. It leaves some things to mystery, and it's going to use words that don't necessarily throw us off kilter. I don't need any laughing. I'm kidding. You can laugh, but just try to control yourself. All right. We're not a bunch of 16-year-olds in high school having the discussion. Here's a helpful narrative backdrop for today. As we're reading this text, I want you to imagine a wedding day. If you had a traditional wedding, then you can probably put yourself right in this story. If you didn't, you've seen enough movies and read enough stories to understand kind of the moments of the day and the rhythm. When my wife and I got married, it was like blitzkrieg. It was crazy. It was fast-paced. It's all mostly a blur at this point, but I can still overlay the discussions onto my story, and I hope you can do it as well. So, to begin, imagine a husband standing at the altar, professing love for his bride, who is about to be genuinely given in marriage in front of a group of people. Okay? Imagine that scene as we start the passage. Chapter 4 begins like this: a profession of love. You're beautiful, my darling, beautiful beyond words. Your eyes are like doves behind your veil. Your hair falls in waves like a flock of goats winding down the slopes of Gilead. Any ladies in the room not want to hear your hair talked about in terms of goats? I mean, come on. We need to bring back the goat. I'm kidding. We don't actually need to do that. The imagery here, though, is I think we can get past the strange terms and think about that moment, a traditional bride with a veil coming down the aisle. And what does that convey? Anticipation and mystery. Like you can see, but you can't see everything. He can see her eyes darting back and forth, anxious, nervous, excited all at the same time. They're like active doves flittering around. Her hair is likely, at least in this context, concealed. It's something that he is going to be personally discovering soon, because in the ancient world, your hair was your most exotic component. That's why it's often covered and still is in certain parts of the world. So he's describing, I see you and I'm ready, but you're still partly separated. And the separation is a veil that he's staring at. He continues, but first, I guess, I want to talk about the veil for a moment. In marriages, it's normal when you're getting into the warp and woof of things and you're learning about each other, for some things to be a surprise. Like how aggressively you sleep. Or where you want certain things in the refrigerator so that they don't go bad. Like there's so many idiosyncrasies that we get used to, right? And that you can imagine that kind of the veil coming off a little bit. Not everything is super amazing when the veil comes off. It's like, oh man, I wasn't expecting that. But we do it together because we're captivated by the person, flaws and all. I want to say this. In your marriage, the veil has to come off. What happens is, most of us, guys and gals, go into a marriage wanting to keep it on partially. We want to hide the parts of ourselves that we're not happy with. We want to hide that from our spouse because we're afraid of what they or how they might react. The thing that was supposed to be there in this passage to create anticipation and mystery, if not removed in the context of covenant marriage, will become an obstacle to the intimacy it was supposed to foster. And so many of us hide things from our spouses in our marriage about us that we don't like or don't think that they're going to like. What that actually does, rather than accomplishing the goal of you guys feeling close in spite of it, is because of it, you don't feel close. Take the veil off. Share all of who you are with all of who your spouse is. This happens in your spiritual life as well. Why keep the veil on? God knows your junk. So many of us think we can walk around and God's not seeing what we're doing, how we're acting, the things we're thinking and saying. Poppycock. Take the veil off with God. Be fully known and fully exposed before him. Do the same before your spouse. Don't be like Adam and Eve who cover up. That's a problem that Christ came to solve. So if you're experiencing veiled frustration in your intimate relationships today, maybe it's time to have a discussion. And that should come from the person who's veiled, not the person trying to unveil it. Let me reveal all of who I am to you, to the person who is still going to love you despite your flaws. We move forward. He continues, your teeth are as white as sheep. I don't know what sheep he's talking about. I've seen sheep. My grandpa had some on the farm. They were nasty. They were yellow. They roll around their own poop. And he adds a line. He says, recently shorn and freshly washed. But still, I mean, that's a low bar for teeth whiteness. Your smile is flawless. Each tooth matched with its twin. You know what he's saying? You have all your teeth. Which is funny, but think in the ancient world with no modern dentistry. I mean, a lot of us have teeth problems. A bunch of mine are at least partially fake. Whoa, you got all your teeth. This is nuts. Who cares what color they are? Your lips are like scarlet ribbon. Your mouth is inviting. You can imagine him saying this before the you may now kiss the bride, right? Your cheeks are like rosy pomegranates behind your veil. Your neck is as beautiful as the Tower of David, jeweled with the shields of 1,000 heroes. Your breasts are like two fawns of a gazelle grazing among the lilies. Before the dawn breezes blow, and the night shadows fade, I will hurry to the mountain of myrrh and the hill of frankincense. You who are altogether beautiful, my darling, beautiful in every way. What's he describing? The desire to get to know his wife pretty intimately, at least on the outside. Modern translation, girl, you look good. And I cannot wait to get that veil off, okay? If you're a husband, you remember those moments. But one thing that we don't listen to is the beginning, the start, and the end, the affirmation of beauty. He doesn't know everything he's going to get from the bride. She's partially veiled. She's at least, in that culture, she's probably really veiled. There's some unknown. But what does it start with? This trust, this affirmation, beautiful darling, beautiful in every way. Well, that's a commitment. That's someone who says, I don't even fully know you yet, but I'm fully committed to calling you beautiful anyway. And afterward, when it's all said and done, and we've got to experience each other, the word is the same. You are altogether beautiful, my darling. Beautiful in every way. I think this kind of affirmation matters, and it needs to happen more in our culture. Wow, can't say words. Culture. I have some statistics to back up this claim. They're depressing. Let me share them. This is a couple of government websites even. Approximately 80% of U.S. women don't like how they look, according to a survey. 34% of men are even dissatisfied with their body. Over 50% of Americans say they aren't happy with their current weight. 70% of normal weighted women, that would be like in the norm, want to be thinner. Over 80% of 10-year-olds are afraid of being fat. Only 4% of women around the world consider themselves beautiful. What does that mean? They don't have this affirming voice in their life. Only 11% of girls globally are comfortable describing themselves at all beautiful. 72% of girls feel tremendous pressure to be beautiful by worldly standards. 80% of women agree that every woman has something about her that is beautiful, but they don't see their own beauty. More than half of women globally, 54%, agree that when it comes to how they look, they're their own worst critic. What do we, of both sexes, need to hear more often from the people in our lives? And not just about our physical status. Emotional, mental, spiritual. You're beautiful. Beautiful in every way. God sees you like that, and I see you like that. What does that allow? Vulnerability. Intimacy. To truly be known and to know. In this moment, the guy is likely 2 feet from the gal. Maybe they're holding hands. That would at least be the modern version of this. And he's currently expressing this desire to connect in a promise, but they're still in this public moment. They're not yet technically betrothed. She's still veiled. And he is explaining this distance that he feels. Though he's likely holding her hands, listen to how he describes the desire for intimacy. Come with me from Lebanon, my bride. Come with me from Lebanon. Come down from Mount Amana, from the peaks of Sinir and Hermon. I didn't even practice pronouncing these. Where the lions have their dens and the leopards live among the hills. What is he saying? I'm in the same room with you. But because we're not experiencing the intimacy that God has designed us to experience, I feel like you're on another planet. If you're married, you've experienced that. You've been in the room with your spouse, and you feel a bazillion light years away. Now, oftentimes that's because of conflict. One or both people refusing to own up to something they've done, something they've said, something they've not said. In this moment, it's not that. It's simply the nature of the moment. I can't know you all the ways I want to, and it's driving me insane. I can't wait for this wedding to be over so we can get alone. Now, once he gains his composure a little bit, because that happens, sometimes we get a little bit bonkers, don't we? We go, slow down, center. Here's what he says. I love this affirmation. Verse 9, you have captured my heart, my treasure, my bride. You hold it hostage with one glance of your eyes, with a single jewel from your necklace. By the way, the Hebrew here that says you've captured my heart could also be translated, you make my heart beat fast. Or you're ravishing my heart. I've got no control. Like you've got a lot of power in this situation. Maybe in 21st century language, you'd say, you drive me crazy in a good way. And then one other word that's in that passage that I want to describe, you can throw up verse 10. Treasure, verse 10. That's verse 4, or verse 8. There we go. This is the next section. We can just leave it up there. But my treasure, what does that say in your Bible if you've got it open? Sister. Right. That's conflicting, doesn't it? Right? Like, would you say these sorts of things towards your sister? No, let me tell you. I want to describe, I think treasure is an appropriate translation, but the Hebrew word does say sister. It's a cultural idiom, okay? He's not actually saying, I wish you were my sister. It's not like a mountainous region of America that okay? That's not what's going on here. The idea of a sister and professing love like a sister is closeness. I feel like I've known you forever. Like you know all the parts of me. Nothing is hidden. We've gone through some stuff together. That's what's implying. Not actually like sisterhood, but the nature of that relationship. So I think the treasure translation that's throughout is actually appropriate. And here's why. Let me just read all of verse 10. Your love delights me, my treasure, my bride. Your love is better than wine. Your perfume more fragrant than spices. I don't know if any of you will catch this reference. When I read this line when I was studying this week, the song Better Than Drugs by Skillet came to my mind. That was like my middle school years. You can look it up. It's a quote of the line. But he's talking about Jesus, and some people think this is talking about Jesus as well. The implied question here is, why would I ever look anywhere else for something to satisfy me than right the person in front of me? So many of us are tempted to find satisfaction in life in relationships with other people in one way, shape, or form. What he's saying is, you intoxicate me. You're my treasure. Your love is better than wine. Your perfume more fragrant than any other place. I don't need any other accomplishments or notches on my belt. I don't need cash or booze to get me through the day. You're my treasure. You're the thing my heart has sought. I want to rest in you. You shouldn't feel threatened by anything or anyone else. Because what do you do with treasure? You protect it. It's valuable. You can consider this part a vow, and maybe what would come after it in the liturgy of an actual sermon would be the you may now kiss the bride moment. Verse 11, your lips are as sweet as nectar, my bride. Honey and milk under your tongue. Your clothes are scented like the cedars of Lebanon. He's obviously tasted those lips. So you can imagine everybody in the moment shouting, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Here's Mr. and Mrs. Blank. And everybody's like, yeah, woo. Let's head for family pictures. Everybody else can go down to the reception area. Depending on what flavor of Christianity you have, maybe or maybe there's not a bar going on. In the ancient world, that celebration after that moment would last for days. That's the context of the party that Jesus is crashing in Cana, remember? Where's all the wine gone? And he produces, better than average wine. Imagine being the husband and wife who've just said yes, we're committed to each other forever, and the husband has just expressed, I can't wait to see behind the veil. And then you're stuck at a party for days. Imagine the tension. And from that tension, I think we get verse 12, which is the title of the series. You are my private garden, my treasure, my bride, a secluded spring, a hidden fountain. The text says you are a closed off garden, a hidden fountain. What is he saying? I can't believe we haven't got to do the thing yet. And from this point on, that's where this heads. Perhaps some foreplay is in view here in verse 13. Your thighs shelter a paradise of pomegranates with rare spices, henna with nard. By the way, the translation should read something more like your channel. It's an actual Hebrew term to describe the bed, like that one little section in a dried river where the water runs to when the time is right. It all flows there. I'll let your mind decide what that might look like between thighs. Then at the command of the Lord, oh wow, never mind. Skip. We're going to skip that section from Solomon. So, we've been at this point before in the poem. We have. Where they've been together, they've been holding hands, they've been doing something, remember they're lying on the grass, thinking about making a home together, and what do they have to ask? They have to ask the women of Jerusalem, the young ladies of Jerusalem, help us not do this before we're supposed to, remember? Help us to not awaken passion or love before the time is right. We've had that consistently happen. And right when they get engaged in the text, those ladies pop up and say, hey, don't rush into this. Catch the foxes. They've been a voice of reason the whole time. Slow your roll is their roll. But in this moment, there is no need to slow the roll. The context is right. The covenant has been initiated. This is what God intends for the couple. So kind words lead to a kiss. Kiss turns to an embrace. Embrace a desire for more. And no more, don't awaken love until the time is right. It's right. So we get verse 16. Awake, north wind, rise up, south wind, blow on my garden and spread its fragrance around. Come into my garden, my love. Taste its finest fruits. The invitation. And we don't know exactly what that means. It's poetry. You can let your mind wander. But it's echoes of the Edenic paradise. All is open for you. All is right. Share, enjoy, have fun. What does this all mean? Well, for one, I think it's an obvious call to explore and take pleasure in your spouse. To try things without restriction. It's not the language of being walled off or hidden anymore. It's take the fruits, taste and eat, see what you like. Did you know the scriptures don't have limits of what's appropriate sexually between a husband and wife who are married? Now, we've been conditioned to imagine there are certain things that are okay and certain things that aren't. Those aren't biblical prohibitions. The only biblical prohibition is that you don't demean your spouse. That is, you don't do something that dishonors the image of God in them. This passage is saying there's a lot of things that are good that can be explored and tried. And I sometimes have people come to me worried about not having the type of physical intimacy they want with their spouse for any number of reasons. We could list off 20 billion. Age, other issues, health, conflict, you name it. What this text is saying is there's pretty much a workaround for any problem. In your life, there shouldn't be things that are hidden from your spouse in this way. It's time to explore, to allow for permission to break out of narrowly defined expected norms. It's God's desire that the garden is tasted and explored. And I want you to also note another really important thing in this passage. There's a change of possessive language. Previously, it's been the guy saying your garden or the woman saying my garden. How did that change here? She says, come into your garden, my love. It's a change of possession, a jointness. This relationship, this intimacy between a husband and a wife is a shared thing. Co-owners. You're not simply your own. Taste your finest fruits. Here's the basis for Paul's understanding of human sexuality. It's not narrow or restrained. There's not off limits, but it's not to be used as leverage. Sexuality between man and woman in a Christian relationship is a mutually shared resource. And this was an important word for the church at Corinth. They had a hard time grasping this. They were all over the map. They couldn't understand what was right and good, given God's understanding of sex. So Paul writes this in 1 Corinthians chapter 7. It should be familiar. A husband should fulfill his wife's sexual needs, and a wife should fulfill her husband's needs. The wife gives authority over her body to her husband, and the husband gives authority over his body to his wife. What does that mean? Shared garden. Not mine, ours. He continues, don't deprive each other of sexual relations unless you both agree to refrain from sexual intimacy for a limited time so you can give yourselves more completely to prayer. My guess is most of us don't embody the back half of that line as our reason for not sharing sexual intimacy. Afterward, you should come together again so that Satan won't be able to tempt you because of your lack of self-control. Paul's vision is it's our garden. Let's taste it and explore it together. And that is good. It's a restoration of what God always intended. So back to our main text. How do you think the guy is going to respond to that invitation? Come, taste, and eat. Explore your garden. Well, what do you think? He's ready. Chapter 5, verse 1. I have entered my garden, my treasure, my bride. I gather myrrh with my spices. I eat honeycomb with my honey. I drink wine with my milk. Who knows what's going on there? Your guess is as good as mine, and we're going to leave it gray. But one last point before we stop. Remember the young pesky women from Jerusalem who are always like saying, slow down, slow your roll, this isn't okay. Make sure you check yourself before you wreck yourself, Catch all the foxes because they're going to be destroying intimacy for years to come. They pop back up after this moment of consummation, where man and woman become one, where there's shared intimacy in this specific way. And based on their discussion so far, you'd expect them to say something along the lines of like, slow down. That's not what they say at all. Instead, they say, eat, friends, and drink. Drink your fill of love. By the way, in this passage, a lot of the language in Song of Songs is hard to translate to begin with. It's poetry. And we've already seen the person who translates this specific passage use treasure instead of sister because that helps us understand, right? I have a problem with this. Because eat, friends, and drink is right. But drink your fill of love is wrong. It's actually wrong. It communicates the wrong thing. And it's something that we need to rediscover. So the actual Hebrew in this passage, you can put it back up, is shakar. And it means to become drunk. It's not just like enjoy a sip. It's drink deeply. Get drunk on love. These ladies who have said, slow your roll, this isn't good, catch the foxes, calm down, in this moment, when they see man and woman become one as God has intended, say, this is right. Don't slow down, pedal to the metal, get drunk on intimacy with each other. Now, drunkenness, especially in the Wesleyan Church, has a pretty serious negative connotation, correct? So you might be thinking, how can sexual drunkenness be a good thing? That's a worthwhile question to ask and consider, because it sounds a little like, whoa, what on earth are they actually suggesting? Well, a lot of what we've inherited in our Christian world for our understanding of sexuality comes out of St. Augustine. This is a guy where before he converted to Christianity was a player. He did anything he could possibly do to get with as many women as he possibly could, and he regretted that a lot when he became a Christian. So he became this leading proponent and voice for temperance and sexuality, and he thought that the act of sex is actually how we communicate original sin. It's called concupiscence. So if you believe that, you're going to be telling people to slow their roll. Well, let me tell you something. That's not what the scriptures say here. Not at all. It says, don't slow your roll. Get drunk on love. This is right. This is good. This is pleasing to God. This is how it is supposed to be. We see an affirmation of these lovers' activity. It's good, wholesome, right, and proper. The physical consummation of their love is something that God intends for them to do, and to do with reckless abandon. Now, drunk on love does not mean that's all you ever think about, and that's all you ever do. That would be pretty dumb. We live in a world with lots of other competing things that we have to deal with. Lots of other expectations and hopes. But what I think it actually is saying for all of us who are married today is, when is the last time you actually were drunk on love? When is the last time you looked at your spouse, not even just physically, but when's the last time you were with the person who's closest to you in the world and nothing else mattered for that moment? When's the last time you shared your favorite activity and just got to look at each other and said, this is where I'm supposed to be, and I don't care about things at work or the kids' needs at the moment or what we're going to do tomorrow or the fact that we need to fold laundry or go grocery shopping, because I'm with you. And this is all I need right now. When's the last time you can say you experienced drunken love? If it's been a while, maybe you need to hear the prescriptive voice of the young ladies from Jerusalem. Eat, drink, be drunk on love. Being drunk on wine, no bueno, biblical prohibition. Being drunk on love, have at it. Let's just clearly demarcate things here. We don't want to be drunk all the time. But I think the text is actually saying, take time and make physical intimacy in your relationship a priority. All of us have a bazillion other things that are more important. The text is saying, no. This is important. It's part of what you were designed to be. So that changes throughout time, and it changes in seasons, and it changes with age, and it changes with health. But you know what doesn't change? A shared garden. Shared ownership. I think the text today is saying, get more creative. Stop complaining about walls that you're building in your life and in your sexual intimacy. Because God has said, a man would leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two would become one, and that is good. Rediscover some drunken love this week. I'll give you a simple example. I'm going off script. One of the ways, inherently personal, one of the ways that I feel really connected with Shayna is something we used to do a lot that we rarely get to do now because we have kids who are very needy, and you can't leave them alone at home. We used to go to Starbucks and read together, be together but be separate. And I would say we exchanged flirtive glances. It was mostly me being weird and annoying. And she just going, oh, right? But you know what? I felt really connected in that moment. I felt like nothing else mattered. And maybe I forgot what I was reading. Who cares? Because she was my beautiful bride, and we were together. Get creative. Reestablish intimacy. The physical stuff matters, but it's so far beyond that. It has to be beyond that. Rediscover a way to get drunk on love with the people who are closest in your life.